Hello everybody, what a fantastic turnout. Welcome to you and welcome to the people online to the EGX Theatre 2019. I'm Bertie, a writer for Eurogamer.net, and it is my pleasure to introduce our session coming up now about the gorgeous and sometimes overlooked art of storytelling through music in video games.
I am happy to see everyone here for a music talk. My name's Janesta, and I'm music supervisor at Frontier Developments, and I'm here to lead these guys in a bit of a case study on what it's like to work as a composer with your game directors and how the two come together to produce the musical world that you live in when you play these games. We don't have that much time, actually, so I think we'll jump right into it so we have Q&A time at the end. First, I'd like everyone to introduce themselves, please.
Hello, I'm Mike Chapman, and I'm design director from Rare.
Hiya, I'm Robin Beanland. I'm music director for Rare.
Hi, I'm David Housden. I'm a composer for video games, amongst other things.
I'm Mark Backler. I'm the founder of Sketchbook Games.
Excellent. And actually, if I could have the lights up just a little bit for the crowd. I'd love to know who we're talking to because it's really helpful to guide the convo. So is there anyone in here who is a composer? Ooh, nice. How about anyone on dev teams? Couple. And do we have any game music fans, soundtrack fans? Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Right on. Okay, so we're going to jump right into it, and we'll start with Sea of Thieves. We have a little trailer for you guys to watch first, but I'll let you set that up.
Yeah, so up until very recently, I'm sure you're familiar with Sea of Thieves, it's been a game where the stories come through the interaction with players and mechanics in this shared world. Up until the release of our anniversary update, which was to celebrate the first year of being out, we wanted to explore the idea of authored narrative in that shared world. So we put together this trailer for this quintessential pirate story, this quest for the shores of gold. So this is a trailer we put together to celebrate that.
There is an island that lies beyond the borders of this world. Impossible to reach without great power. The Shroudbreaker is that power, and there are many of these seas who seek it. But this adventure belongs to you. Follow the clues left by those who came before, and the rewards within your grasp are riches unimaginable. If you can face those who guard them. Well, what are you waiting for?
The skull of a skeleton lord. Impressive. But you must take care. For great danger lies ahead.
Nice. That kind of scared me a bit at the end, but I was ready for it because I saw it before. All right, so we're going to start with Robin. You perform a few audio roles in one when it comes to your position at Rare, being both the music director and the composer for Sea of Thieves. What is your background and what led you to Rare in the first place?
So I started out, I'd left school, I said to mum and dad, I'm going to be a rock star. And they were like, okay, let's give it a go. So I played in a band for quite a while. We'd sort of we had a Radio 1 session, Tommy Van's show and stuff like that. That kind of fell apart, and I started to work for a freelancer in Leeds, my hometown, called Chris Norton. And I did some TV stuff with him, some library albums and things like that. And my brother showed me an ad for a company in Twycross looking for composers. So I just sent a tape in,
Wow.
got a job. That was 1994. I've been there ever since.
Wow. Congrats.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's that easy these days. But
No, it isn't. Yeah.
Right on.
No.
Okay, so Mike, when it comes to Sea of Thieves, when does Robin come in on the process? Is he involved in setting the tone from the beginning, or does the design have to sort of progress first before he comes on?
Yeah, well, it's a two-part question. The origin of Sea of Thieves, I mean, this is something we do at Rare anyway, but ensure that we prototype the game very early to find the fun, find what's magic about the experience. And where the music comes in with that is, internally you pitch the game to each other, then pitch the game to, obviously, wider Xbox and try and get buy-in for why we're inspired and why it's special. And it is the same with music. I mean, right at the start when we had that prototype, Robin was right there at the start of it. And he could see it, you could play it, and understand what was special and how music could enhance that experience. And with Tall Tales, that was very much we knew what story we wanted to tell, we knew why we wanted to tell it, and saw the opportunity how music could heighten the emotions that we wanted to deliver with these stories. And that was very much just tapping on Robin's window, going up to his office and giving him this pitch for what the story was and what we wanted to tell. And then, as always, Robin works his magic, and it always turns out so much better than even our wildest dreams. Like, he does an incredible job doing this stuff. But no, it's a very organic process.
Right on. So I know you go up, you tap on the window. Robin's like, what? And you're like, dude. So you start talking about music, and there's usually, I know, some reference tracks or some keywords that you sort of maybe put out first. Where did you start with that? Any keywords or references or influences?
Indiana, Jones, Goonies Never Say Die. No. I think the big thing was, well, Sea of Thieves has always been a game where we wanted to have this whole range of different emotions. So, you're sailing into the sunset, you're feeling that sense of loss when your galleon slips below the waves. And all of that's happening in this shared world, whereas with Tall Tales most recently, it was how can we give players those emotions on demand? So you're in this shared world, but you're telling this authored story, and the stories were built around emotions. We had like a tale of love, a tale of revenge, a tale of mystery, and those were the prototype names for these tales. That's where we started. And the emotion, the music had to get right to the heart of that. So we started with a love story, telling a love story in a pirate world, and the music was so key to nail that emotion. And we had opportunity to do that through the cinematic banners that come in to introduce certain chapters, where the music swells at certain key moments in the tale. It all kind of riffed on the same melody, didn't it?
And Tall Tales is set apart musically from the shared world experience.
Yes.
However, as Sea of Thieves is a shared world game, how do you go about writing music when the players essentially create their own narrative? Yeah.
So one of the first things I was told was I couldn't infer an emotion that wasn't happening. So very early on, I wrote some ship battle music, and it was like, yeah, we're not sure the players are going to want to shoot cannons at each other. So we stripped that right back to just a musical sting. If you shot a cannonball and it hit another ship, then you alone get a musical sting. None of the other crew hear it. Whether you meant to do it or not, you did. Because we didn't want to sort of get two ships sort of getting in proximity to each other and then starting some battle music up, because they may just want to play shanties to each other. So it was very much like, don't infer stuff that isn't happening, and sort of have the shanties where players try and cover a sort of a range of emotions where players can go, I'm feeling like this, I'm going to play this shanty.
And is there an element to your writing that is sort of more vertical than linear and stuff like that, or do you try and keep it very limited?
Certainly, I mean, Tall Tales is quite linear. It's kind of, we really sort of lent into the music a lot more, but it's sort of like the shared world stuff. It was very much the music is broken into bits, and We sort of in the middle where we use called WIs. We go, well, we're on this chord, so you've got a choice of like 10 hurdy-gurdy melodies you can pick from, and I really like that. I like the fact that the music has a life beyond me and Pro Tools. You know, it's all in bits, and the software's driving it, and depending on what the player's doing at the time.
I think I like to jump because we're now running out of time already. But so this track called "Be Calmed." How did you use that within Tall Tales, and what's the story behind "Be Calmed"?
Like, "Be Calmed" is obviously a shanty that Robin wrote, and that it's always had this special quality. Like players have reacted to it so well. It's this very kind of melancholy, wistful track, and playing that as you're out on the seas, it's so evocative, that music, and we saw that players have responded so well to it, and like it's almost like the anthem for the design team at Rare. Like when we think of Sea of Thieves, it's not the main theme; it's probably "Be Calmed." We just love that music, and with Tall Tales, we have the opportunity to make it the anthem, make it more of an anthem. And the good thing was that players were already playing that on their musical instruments in the game. Like they'd get together, hurdy-gurdy, concertina, the drum, playing that music together. We had an opportunity to tie into the most emotional moment at the end of the story, where you'd found the shores of gold, you'd beaten the gold hoarder, and you've got this trip back to the ship with, you know, you're successful, you've done it, you're the hero. And the music coming in at that moment, like that emotional release, the next time players were to play that on their ship, we wanted it to be now imbued with this more emotion, because they're thinking back to that experience they had at the end of the Shores of Gold story. And when the Pirate Lord's giving his speech at the end, the music is subtly playing in the background. And this is a moment we talked about. And we sat in your office together, listening to the end of Shawshank Redemption over and over and over. This moment where Andy's walking on the beach at the end and they meet, and sorry, spoilers, it's an old film now. And you hear the track, and then it kicks in when it goes to the end credits. And that's pretty much that switch up that we did at the end of Shores of Gold. It plays, and then it really kicks up a notch as you kind of leave this kind of underground layer. So, yeah.
And that tune I originally wrote, I was trying to make a hurdy-gurdy sound like a pleasant instrument to listen to. So that's the challenge for that tune. That's how it came about. And I was thinking, I wasn't sure whether the dev team would go for it. I was thinking, I don't know if it's a bit too, I don't know, twee or not, I don't know, but yeah. That's how it started life.
That's actually an interesting, I'll turn that into a quick question, but like, how much of the stuff do you write that sort of gets in versus gets scrapped? Or maybe it is a Mike question. Like, do you over
It usually
deliver?
finds a place somewhere, usually at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it doesn't make it the first time.
Right. So we don't have this on the paper either, my old school notes, but something we're not really touching on is sort of the coders or the implementers for the music systems. So especially in an open world game, how important is, you know, what you deliver and that they understand what your vision is to implementing it for the players?
Really important. I mean, I think that's probably an advantage of me being in-house, that I'm just down the corridor from John Vincent, who implemented all the shanty stuff. Who's written a lot of, he's the audio director, but he's also written a lot of audio code. And I suppose I get that luxury that I can sort of go, what about this? Can we try this? And he'll go, yeah, let's go for it, and get it to work. And I mean, that whole sort of shanty, the way the shanties work, and the players can drop in and out, and it all stays in sync, and they can move around, and it goes in the 7, and that's all down to John getting that in.
So I think it's worth pointing out that it's not just the composer or the director or the creative director that deals with music in the game. It's actually touched by a lot of people if it's well considered. Always consider music. So very quickly, one last thing. Do you have any advice for composers or budding composers on how to find an in-house gig at a gaming studio?
God, it's so long since, you know, the centre tape and got a job, but
easy.
I think it's probably just, you know, try and maybe sort of work with some indies first and things like that, and just sort of get your name known about and try and make it in that way. But just keep doing it. Don't give up. Keep trying, and just try and make a better job the next time you pick up your instrument or whatever, you know, and start composing.
do you think it's important to watch sort of film score and other game score, or not really?
Definitely play games.
Yeah, to
play
know
games.
how it works. Yeah.
Know the audience that's playing it.
Yeah, know your audience. That's a good one. All right, so that's it for the Sea of Thieves portion. Round of applause for Rare. So now we'll move on to this side. We're going to talk to the composer and director of a brilliant and beautiful new upcoming game called Lost Words. I will let you set up your trailer.
Thanks very much. So yeah, Lost Words is a narrative platform adventure, half set in the pages of diary. Let's roll the trailer and take a look, please.
Hello, Journal. Is it okay if I call you that? It's a bit formal, I know, but we've only just met. Let me tell you why you're here. Since I was little, I've always dreamed of becoming a writer. That's why Gran gave you to me. She always talks about little acorns growing into big trees. Although I think she's trying to make me feel better about my height. I'm going to write a story, one that'll make Gran smile. I want her to be proud of her little acorn. There once was a young girl who thought she would never see outside her home village. But the land of Astoria had other ideas. It had great and terrible adventures planned for her. Hello again, Journal. We went to visit Gran in the hospital today. Mum said she was going to be fine. But I saw her crying in her room. She is going to be fine, isn't she? She has to be. Finish the story so Gran can read it when she feels better. Now, where were we?
It's an optimistic date there. It's going to be Q1. Yeah, Q1 2020.
So pretty. So in contrast to these guys, you actually outsourced the music composition. You don't have an in-house composer, and it's a bit of a different style of gameplay. So I think it's great to have you guys both here to talk about your sort of different approaches to music. So when you started looking for a composer for Lost Words, where did you start, and sort of what type of skill set were you looking for in a composer?
I guess just looking for previous work that I'd, really heard of and loved, and David and I actually met through EGX Res a few years ago, and I knew Thomas was alone, and that David had written the score for it and did an amazing job with that and got a BAFTA nomination for it. And so it was kind of a no-brainer, really.
We also live in the same town. I literally thought I was the only person who lived in Ipswich who works in the games industry, so sort of one by default there, really. But, thank you for the kind words, though.
Well, we didn't know that we both lived in Ipswich until EGX, so it wasn't like, it was an easy choice because of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good skill set to have, live near person.
Always helps, always.
So at what point did you come on board, and how did you reach out to him?
It was probably reasonably late into what development was at that point. I think you were probably a couple of years into it, maybe, or a year.
Maybe a year. It was
Right,
still
yeah.
early days, though.
Yeah, so I saw this amazing unmanned, by the way, demo at Res, but we won't go on about that. That's fine.
I think I was just going to get lunch or go to the loo.
all right.
Something essential.
And I was just blown away by how beautiful it was. Like, you told just such a compelling story in the space of 10 minutes, and there were like 3 deaths. It was like George R. Martin does Disney or something like that. I was just, yes, just get me in that. So yeah, no, I was just blown away by it. So I kind of looked into it online, and the only thing that I could find was the Twitter account of Mark, who was the creator. And then, as I said, yeah, I realized that he was in the same town as me. I was like, oh, dude, like, loved your game. Like, we should go have a drink sometime, catch up. He actually had someone else working on it back then. So initially, we just kind of turned into drinking buddies and hung out with friends for about a year. But then as kind of time passed, I started offering a little bit of help here and there because his other composer had a full-time job and wasn't kind of used to see the fun of full-time indie development, shall we say. And then as time passed, I guess, I just started doing more and more and ended up kind of doing the whole thing. So yeah, sorry.
That's great. So I know that this game is very story-driven, and it deals with a heavy subject matter relating to sort of the fragility of life and how one finds their way through that. The story itself was built with the influence of child psychologists and their guidance. So when you first started thinking about music, were you trying to sort of tie into that or stay away from the more weighty stuff just to sort of lighten the mood a bit, or how did you decide on that?
Yeah, we wanted it to be a really moving experience, and the music is such a big part of that. Like really early on when we just had a sort of early pass of the story, it was always amazing that when you put in a track, it kind of elevates everything so much, and it kind of communicates things that the words that I'd put in the game at that point weren't doing. But then it just seemed to take it to a whole new level and seemed to make my first pass writing much better than it actually was. And then we also got Rihanna Pratchett involved, who's been writing the story. So it's really great to have her working on the project, and the fact that she's done amazing AAA games like Tomb Raider, but then was interested to work on a kind of an independent title like Lost Words was awesome.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the strength of the kind of concept and the subject matter. Is, you know, it's a real treat to write for something with so much meaning. And to answer your question, yes, like 100%, all of the music is just about kind of the subtext. Like, I'm not ignoring the aesthetic or the pace of the play or the mechanics by any point, but I'm really trying to reinforce what the player should be experiencing on an almost subconscious level whilst going through it. So yeah, fundamentally, that really has guided the entire compositional process for this game.
And it was the Wellcome Trust who helped kind of facilitate us working with a child psychologist, and they've they worked with Ninja Theory on Hellblade, and so yeah, they've done a really awesome job with that, and it's been good working with them.
Amazing. So similar to a question I asked to them, were there any sort of reference tracks or keywords? I know it's all about words, but any reference tracks, influences, keywords that you sort of threw about when you were trying to sort of guide him where the music should go?
Yeah, so we kind of built a playlist on Spotify of lots of different reference tracks, but I kind of wanted to have loads of stuff there, but then have it available for David to just look at and see what resonated with him and what he liked and what he didn't like, and kind of go in whatever direction he thought really.
Ignore all of it. And
yeah. Basically.
No, it's funny, like when I first came on, I asked Mark to like put together some references just so that I could try and get in the same kind of ballpark as you were thinking, just to make sure you didn't want a heavy metal score and I'd go and do something with piano and strings. And he put together like 90 tracks on Spotify, and half of them I just could not see why you put them in for this. I was like, dude, really? And he's like, oh, well, it's just something I've been listening to whilst going. I was like, cool, so it has no relevance whatsoever to what you actually want, yeah. So we whittled it down slightly, and I guess we had kind of 5 or 6 tracks that you really liked for each stage, and then I kind of go off and, do my own version of them and try and make it sound remotely like what you'd actually asked for. And that's kind of how we did it.
So that brings me actually really well, thank you, into my next question, which is, so he can come up and tap on Robin's window and say, okay, we were going to talk about this. Having not been in the same physical space, how do you work so closely together on something so creative and so tied together when you're not in the same office?
We've kept a couple of local pubs in business over the last few years, so there's that. Other than that, I mean, we're always logged into Discord day and night, aren't we? Talk to each other quite regularly there.
most of the team works remotely, so sort of a process we've had for the whole game, not just the music. And so we have like a weekly team call on a Monday on Discord, and then we've also used Skype and email and all the things today that and Dropbox for sharing stuff easily. And we're quite lucky that there's so many cool tools that make working remotely a lot easier than it's ever been before.
We spent a lot of time kind of communicating very closely at the beginning of the creative process to, I had such a clear idea of where this game needed to go and what the score needed to sound like. The writing process almost took care of itself, but we really did spend a long time kind of making sure that we're heading in the right direction. And it was relatively easy after that, I have to be honest. Like, there wasn't a single day of writer's block on this. It's just such a vivid world to write for, and just sad it's over, really.
Yeah, lovely. 2 real quick questions. Well, maybe quick. So music budgets for indie games are lower, let's say, than AAA.
Putting it kindly.
So I know you use some live string players, which is kind of hard sometimes for an indie developer to accept that sort of cost. Why did you really think that you needed and wanted live strings?
I, from day one, started dropping the idea to Mark that this needed to be a live score. I just feel the subject matter, the emotion behind it, the je ne sais quoi that having live players brings to it just really elevated everything so much. Like, he was relatively happy with the mock-ups, and it was kind of one of those, it was in the nice to have bracket, but not essential, and I just kept pushing for it. And Mark, full credit to him, that there aren't many indie developers that would have kind of appreciated the, I don't know, the gravitas that kind of having live players would bring to it, but he really did, and, he went for it. And yeah, I can't put into words how much, it was night and day difference, wasn't it? It really has just kind of really just increased the intensity and the weight of the storytelling. There's so much heart and soul in it in a way that, just samples alone really can't achieve, even if, you kind of spend your time programming the life out of them. And, I fully appreciate how fortunate that we've been, because it's not a normal scenario, and, it does cost a lot of money, but I'm so glad that we have, and, hopefully we'll do again.
Yeah,
I couldn't make it over for the recording, unfortunately, but I've seen the footage of it, and it's pretty amazing to see all those people kind of coming together and doing something for the game. And it must have been pretty incredible for you having your music played by a live orchestra.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a bit of a dream come true.
Brilliant. So last question for our composers and budding composers in the audience. Do you have any advice if you would like to go into sort of the freelance composer branch?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it wasn't that long ago I was, sitting in the audience for these kind of things, so it's still very fresh in my memory. First of all, you're absolutely doing the right thing by being here today, so well done. You need to be coming to these events. You need to be looking at every avenue and opportunity that you can for an opportunity to build a relationship with developers. Obviously, when people are showcasing their games at these kind of things, 90% of them are already going to have music. But it's really important just to get to know people and to build friendships. And I think the one piece of advice I'd really try to impart, and it's very difficult when you're starting out, but try and enter into a relationship looking at what you can give to it rather than what you can get from it, because I think people can kind of sense ingenuousness very quickly, and there's a lot of first. And I appreciate it because I know how it is, but yeah, if you can just try to kind of get to know people on a friendship basis, then the work often follows afterwards.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So we'll open up to questions in just 1 minute. I just think that it's really nice to wrap it up on more of the similarities aspect than the differences in the way of working. And I think that it's really important to shed light on how close these teams have to work together and how much time has to be put in and how much passion. I think that players can really sense when music is considered and when it's just slapped over something. Yeah, I don't think that it's something that should be overlooked because it's such a huge part of the game. So well done on that. Right on. So do we have any questions from the audience? Ooh, lit up microphone. Come on over.
Hey, so I'm a student working in university second year, and I'm actually a writer rather than a composer, but because we don't have many audio students, we kind of overlap. So I was wondering, for general emotions, how would you go around like researching and being able to portray that in sound effects and soundtracks for someone that literally has no clue what they're doing?
Personally, I'd spend a lot of time looking at other media, so look at examples of films and games which have achieved what you're trying to in a strong way, and look, try and analyze it, look at what they've done to, we spend a lot of time kind of looking at like Pixar and DreamWorks films for this, in terms of how to portray quite adult subjects in a way which is accessible for a very broad audience, and that's just one example. I'm not sure what the project is that you're working on, but I'm sure you're going to have relevant examples that you could kind of look at in other forms of media. So that would probably be my best advice, to look what other people have done and try and do your own version of it.
Awesome, thank you very much. Thank you.
Anybody else? Come on over.
While people are coming up, I'll just say about some portfolio advice. I think it's good to have a real variety of stuff. Sometimes when people have sent me like links to their work, it's kind of one particular genre or something, but often it's really good to have a real mix so you can see that they've got the capability to do loads of different things.
Yeah, and even having a reel ready is probably a good idea. Question?
Hello. General, first, thank you for the shanties in Sea of Thieves. My brother-in-law and his now wife met through the shanties and Sea of Thieves in general. So,
wow.
And it's just such a lovely, innovative thing to put in that kind of communal gameplay, and I've just loved watching them play them. My question, I'm a composer, I write mainly for theatre productions. And one of the things that I've often wondered is, when composing for video games, how much are you keeping things as kind of fixed lengths like you would do for a cutscene, but when it comes to underscoring gameplay, how much you creating loops, and how long are those loops, and how do the layers kind of interact within them?
Sea of Thieves is very, very short little phrases, and a lot of just different chord progressions, or just the software will be like, I'm on this chord now, I'm going to pick from 20 phrases that I can play over that chord. So it's really, really short. There's not really a lot of looping in the sort of the main game, but in the sort of tall tale stuff, I suppose you're probably going about 3 minutes on a track under gameplay. But again, that's kind of interacting as well in layers. Okay.
Brilliant. That's really useful. Thank you very much.
I would just say, too, that I know the composers I work with, our audio director usually asks for sort of a 15-second intro, 1-minute loop or 2-minute loop, and then 15 or 30-second outro, just depending on the gameplay style, though, right?
Yep. I was going to say as well, if we've got other questions. Oh, we have.
Sorry.
Hi. Okay. I was just wondering if you could talk about your composer workflows a bit, just because I really like hearing what different composers do, and also whether you've done much work in sound design and effects, and how you use your musical knowledge to inform that. So, yeah.
I'd always intended just to be a composer, but then when one of my first projects came along, they assumed that I did sound design as well, and I didn't bother to tell them that I didn't because I wanted the job. So I guess I became a sound designer, but I wasn't a good one. So as soon as kind of I enjoyed any success with composing, I made sure to concentrate on that and leave sound design to people who actually knew what they were doing. But yes, the more things which you can do at an early stage of your career, the more useful that you make yourself to potential collaborators. So if you do have the skill set or the inclination to learn how to be a good sound designer, it would be a very useful skill to have alongside. As far as workflow goes, I don't know, I wish I had one. I'd probably write a lot faster if I did. Like, I get very inspired by the subject matter that I have to write for. And I find that usually, like, just by looking at something, I can usually start to hit the notes in my head, and then it's just a case of transposing them from my mind into something which actually sounds good. I work in Logic, if that's of any help. Yeah, I mean, sample libraries, they're all to a good standard now, so there's no point in kind of listing them. Like they're all very accessible and they all do good stuff by and large. But yeah, I don't know. I think close collaboration with the people that you're working with tends to yield the best results. And yeah, just trying to be disciplined as a self-employed person is also very helpful. If you can wake up before 10 o'clock, you're doing well. So.
Just, we have to wrap it up, but quickly, what do you use to compose it?
Pro Tools. It used to be Cubase, now it's Pro Tools. Yep.
Ooh, 2 different answers. Right, so we have the countdown. 15 seconds remain, so I guess we should wrap it up. If you do have any more questions, the guys said that they would be happy to speak to you out in the bar area. So come say hi, and thank you very much.
Jack and Coke.
Cheers, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.